Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the WrestleWatch podcast, the only podcast where we discuss free agency in the world of professional wrestling. I am Ryan.
I am Tony Storm.
You're Tony Storm?
It sounded like you said Mariah, so I felt I had to go with Tony Storm.
Oh, well, I would be blessed. I would be blessed if I was Mariah. But unfortunately, I'm not. I'm not the glamour. Although, maybe I should be going by the glamour Ryan from now on.
And I'm Doug. Just Doug.
Just Doug.
Timeless Doug.
That reminds me that there is a... are you familiar with the stand-up comedian Doug Benson, by any chance?
I don't think I am.
So the best way of putting it is that he does high comedy. But he had a podcast that was called Doug Loves Movies. He would invite, movie people and comedians stuff on that. They play games. It's fun. He also has a podcast that's called Wide World of Dougs. And originally it was him going through every Doug he could think of. And then now he just talks about other people that are Dougs. Not enough Dougs.
That's a good... I would like... Listen. I think that there are certain things that every single Doug in the world have had to deal with.
Yeah.
Every single Doug has to deal with the Nickelodeon cartoon and people making references to it every single time they talk to you.
Yeah. Do you have more than one change of clothes, or is it every outfit that you have the same?
Yeah. See, no. Well, that's accurate. All Dougs only have one change of clothes.
Okay.
Yeah. That is true. But we don't all have a crush on Petty Mayonnaise.
Oh, you don't?
No, that's different.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is something that all Dougs have to deal with.
Well, that's understandable, I suppose. To hear all of that, I'm glad that it has been put out there. I understand it now. Yeah. So how about we get into things about this week with the tier list and all of the WrestleWatching kind of stuff that we do here on WrestleWatch.
I think that's a good idea. It's been a pretty noteworthy week. A lot of stuff's been going on. Yeah,
it's starting to pick back up. And one of the reasons why is that beautiful face that some of you guys are seeing on your screen right now, Bobby Lashley. We have some news about him that we're going to get to in a moment, but first we just wanted to show people, if you're watching on YouTube, you're now seeing right now last week's version of the WrestleWatch tier list, which is our way of kind of showing what the probability of different performers of them going on to another company, if they're going to sign forward.
And for those of you who are just listening on audio, after we go through the updates, we will read through the entire tier list, so you can get that too, even just by listening.
Yes,
so
yes.
You'll get the updated one, the correct one, the new one.
The new boy, as it were. So, first off, we're going to talk about all of the stuff with the Hurt Business. Now, as you see on your screen right now, if you're watching, if you're listening, Shelton Benjamin was down in F tier, and he was the only person associated with the Hurt Business that we had been watching here on WrestleWatch. We've been watching him for a while. I think he went as far high as B tier, which was more likely than not. We thought that he was going to be signing to a different major promotion in the coming year. He's fallen all the way down to F tier at this point because we haven't been so sure about him moving up. Now, something's changed this week, I think, about the possibilities of Shelton Benjamin moving on to a major company, and it's due to some of his former teammates in WWE, that being Bobby Lashley and MVP. It appears that Bobby Lashley's contract with WWE will be set to expire on, I believe it was August 10th? Yeah, it will be 2 weeks from now that Bobby Lashley will be a full-on free agent. No wait period, no nothing. I guess we're going to see which stadium show he's going to appear on in August. MVP came out and said, it also appeared that MVP is not listed in the internal roster anymore. Also, Tamina not on there either, but Tamina is going to be staying in WWE and doing backstage stuff. It appears that MVP might be leaving. So, Doug, what are your thoughts so far about the possibilities of what's going to happen next for these guys? Do you think that they're going to end up the same place, different places? How are you feeling about all three of them?
So there's a couple things I'm thinking about with this. The first thing I will say is gonna just kind of talk about some of the reasons why they may not go to AEW. May not go.
Hmm.
First of all, Shelton has been sitting on the tier list on and off for better part of a year, and there was always rumors of him going, and that just never happened. So that's one thing. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is let's talk about MVP.
Yes.
And I could probably segue this uh, into Bobby Lashley as well. The thing with them is that they are a lot older than people think. I believe Bobby Lashley is. Let me double check this. See, I do this all the time where I have to think of. Look, I talk about people's ages and then I forget to look it up. So Bobby Lashley's 48.
Yeah, but he doesn't look it.
No, he does not look it, but he's definitely up there. And MVP is, he's not exactly a spring chicken either. He's still, uh, he's a older guy too.
Well, and
And
he doesn't really wrestle anymore.
yeah, he's just a manager, I guess. But the point is, I don't know that they're gonna Bobby. That's the one thing I would say is working against Bobby Lashley. He's an older guy, and I don't think he's necessarily the most charismatic person.
Yeah.
Um, Now I understand the Hurt Business as a faction worked out pretty well though, and I could see that continuing on. Uh, they've both MVP and Bobby Lashley obviously have a history in TNA. They could
Hmm.
absolutely go back there and pick that up where they left off. But the thing with and obviously MVP is gonna he's had some issues with he's been kind of vocal on social media lately about some of the issues he feels about with WWE and how they've been kind of portraying a lot of black talent recently,
Yeah.
which echoes kind of a lot of stuff that Swerve alluded to when he initially left the company.
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll see if anything comes of that. But then the other issues, MVP and like Chris Jericho don't really get along at all. There was a pretty public blow up between them,
Yeah.
like a couple years ago.
Chris Jericho's shown that he is very happy to work with anybody if so long as he gets paid.
Yeah, this is also true. So I I think that they're gonna and also Bobby Lashley said he wants to continue wrestling. So he's
Yeah.
already made that clear he wants to continue. So
Yes.
based off of that alone, I think that it's pretty safe to assume that they're gonna end up somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna I think TNA at minimum is where they will end up.
Hmm.
Will AEW bring them in? Maybe. I could see that. I mean, I think that we could look at like a short run with them. I don't think you're going to get like a major push. Like I think it was a couple years ago. Bobby Lashley was a world title contender in WWE. I don't think he's going to be that in AEW.
No, probably
But
not. No.
no, but I could see them doing something with him. Um, and just could they reboot just the Hurt Business as a faction? Sure. Maybe they even uh bring some more people into it that are in AEW that aren't really getting used as well. We could see that happening as well.
Yeah.
But that'll I I could see an AEW jump, but I think TNA is more likely.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it's possible to see them in AEW. Just because I think that they might they might be able to handle the money that it might take to get him to get Bobby especially through the door. Again, as you stated, he is not a spring chicken. He is getting older. And he's not likely to be looking at being a world title contender if he's in AEW. Uh, but at the same time, I don't know necessarily what they want to do with the future for Bobby. Like if he is fine with not being a world title contender. If he wants to be a title contender, then yeah, I think that the answer is obviously gotta be Impact, right? Or TNA, because as we've seen this past year, there is a lot of room at the top of the TNA card for anybody of any age.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I think that though there are more there's some more interesting things that they could do on AEW's programming, I think. There are some people that he's never really worked with that are in AEW now. Whereas in TNA, there's going to be a lot of the same kind of people because again, he was in TNA maybe a decade ago at this point. Um, so I think that there's more potential of more interesting things to happen in AEW. Although again, with the caveat that I don't think that they're gonna. I think that their ceiling is a little bit lower. But I think that there are some interesting people that they could have paired with them in AEW that I have more interest in seeing like Will Hobbs work with Bobby Lashley than I am like I can't even think of somebody in TNA that I necessarily would want to see. Like maybe if they move ABC from being a Bullet Club faction, maybe I would like to see those two guys hook up with the Hurt Business. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think that I'm not at the same time though, as we've discussed before about AEW's strategy, it seems that they're moving away from just bringing in anybody from WWE or bringing in a lot of these more aging talents from WWE. But at the same time, these are talents that are wanting to leave WWE. It seems more so than leaving because they're getting cut.
Yeah. I think so, and I think this is, they said, this is an interesting one in the sense that they're gonna go somewhere. I think it's gonna either be, this isn't a situation where someone leaves and they're like, oh, maybe they're just don't want to do AEW, or maybe they don't want to go to TNA. It's like, no, they've been pretty. We already have Bobby Lashley out there saying, no, I'm going to keep wrestling.
Yeah.
So we know that's happening. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go.
Yeah, so as far as what where we want to put them on the tier list. So we have the three members of Hurt Business other than Cedric Alexander going to be on the tier list now, I think. I think that part is easy enough to say that Bobby Lashley and MVP probably are going to go on the tier list even if even if MVP is more of a manager. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So, where would you put? Let's start with Bobby Lashley. Where would you put him on the tier list?
So, hang on, let me just pull up my list. So, here's the thing with Bobby Lashley. I think that out of the three of them, I think he's clearly the most likely to, like, if any of them are gonna like jump, he's the most likely.
He's the most likely to get signed. You're saying?
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. And I think Bobby Lashley is going to go somewhere. Like, I feel pretty confident, so I would put him at A tier.
Okay, I would put him at B tier just because I haven't gotten that little extra oomph of certainty of interest from companies. I know that there have been some indies that have been already trying to reach out to him about booking him, which is a thing that he didn't really do even for I don't think that he really worked the indies ever as much as, well, long ago he did, but like in the recent indie arrangement, I'm not sure if he's really worked the indies in the recently. So that's something that's interesting, but I'm not saying that that's going to be the path that he's going to go. I think that he's going to go to a big money promotion. It's just a question of, for me, of seeing the interest happen and for that certainty to set in. So that's why I'm favoring B tier for Bobby.
What did the committee decide?
The committee decided on B tier. It was about half of us all went with B tier. So I think that that's a pretty solid spot for him. Even if I was somebody that voted A tier, not to put thoughts in your head, I think that you would think that's okay at the moment.
I think that's okay at the moment.
So how about we go to MVP then next? Which we've mentioned a bunch in this conversation. He is, of course, more of a manager at this point, so I could understand not wanting to put him on the tier list just because of that. I would be in favor of, I would go with a C tier because I think due to him being more of just a manager, it's possible that he might not get signed with Bobby. But I think that if Bobby gets signed somewhere, I think MVP is going to go with him and be that creative force behind whatever project they go ahead and do.
I think they're better as an act together. So I felt that wherever they go, I think they're going to keep this Hurt Business going regardless. So I would imagine MVP would be with him. So I put him at A tier too.
Yeah. So the committee though they went more with a more measured approach, and they also went with C for MVP for the moment. And I'm seeing we have a little bit of a comment here from one of our watchers, one of our committee members. They say, I think Bobby would be great in one of the bigger indies, especially Defy or House of Glory would fit him well. But he agrees that TNA might be the most likely spot for them. What do you think about Bobby doing those kinds of indies?
Yeah, I think that those obviously here's the thing. The indies right now are not what they used to be,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have these
Hello, are you
either
there?
Defy or Prestige, especially on the West Coast. Oh, am I gone?
You're
Hello?
back in now.
Hello, hello,
Yeah,
hello, hello.
yeah,
Okay, so I don't know what happened there. Um, yeah, because I think here's the thing. You'll see the West Coast indies right now seem to be the ones that are doing the best
mm-hmm.
in terms of actually securing interesting people. With all due respect to a lot of the up and coming local talent that are trying to get their names heard, and there's some of them out there, but it's not the super indie era anymore. So I think we kind of saw that. We talked about a little bit with Mustafa Ali, how he kind of did that, but he's not getting a ton of buzz from it just because the indies are not what they are. And I imagine that Trevor Lee is going to experience the same thing. Um, will Bobby Lashley do some of those indies? I wouldn't be shocked if he did them. But I do think that if he does do them, he's going to have a little bit of a little less buzz than he would have if he had done it, say, 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that kind of feeling about it. I think that he could again, like that was something that I was just mentioning, was that it didn't feel like Bobby ever really had a run of things on the indies as much as other people have had. So I think that's possible that if he signs to a AEW or a TNA, that he's going to get a flood of offers to work those like higher tier indies, those prestige indies that we've talked about before. Not just prestige, but collective of indies that are prestigious.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's MVP is C tier for the moment. And how are we feeling about Shelton Benjamin, the name that we haven't really been talking about a lot during this discussion? He's been out there in the ether for a little while. How are you feeling about Shelton being a part of this?
So here's the thing with Shelton. I already kind of alluded to that. I think that they are the Hurt Business are better as a group.
Mhm.
I think that that helps them, just in terms of being a better act. Having said that, I don't know that Shelton necessarily needs to be a part of this. I feel like the core part, what you need for Hurt Business is really just Bobby Lashley and MVP.
Yeah.
I think that that's the most important thing. Now, there are people pushing for Shelton Benjamin, but at the same they've been pushing him for a year, and I don't know that we're going to see that. So I actually went kind of low on Shelton. I put him at D tier because I don't know. I feel like if he was going to go somewhere, he would have done it by now.
That's exactly how I'm feeling on him too. I think that AEW has had their opportunity with Shelton, to sign him to do something with him, uh, before he was, tapped to do some kind of short program with somebody that then it didn't work out. I think some people were thinking that it was with Wheeler Yuta who got injured. I was thinking that it was with John Moxley who then, uh, instead did his IWGP work. So, but either way, he was thought to be coming in, and then when this program didn't happen, they just didn't bring him in, which says a lot to me about their interest level in him. Um, I I think that, as you said, Hurt Business is best as a group. and as you said, the core of that is MVP and Bobby. But I do think that it should be a stable. I think to work even better because you got to have your older guy that's like your today guy that's the big big talent. You have your future guy and you have your tag guy. So I think that and tag guy usually goes with either one of them and takes the pins, and I think that Shelton Benjamin can be that person. Um, so
I agree.
I think that D tier is a fine spot for him. That's where I would go. And it seems that our committee also agrees with putting him in D tier. So it's a little bit interesting to see that we split the decision as a committee on the Hurt Business with Bobby up at E, MVP C, Shelton at D. But I think that that's generally how people certainty level is of them at the moment. Um, because yeah, like I think Dave Meltzer said that there's been some talk about them going to AEW, but it's like everything's kind of centering on that top person of Bobby. So it makes sense that as people were voting, they were kind of focused on Bobby and his potential.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I agree.
so that is the Hurt Business. We're gonna talk about next somebody that has already debuted in AEW, and that is Camille. It took a while, but she's there now. It's over. It's done. She's no longer gonna be an S tier, I think, right?
No, yeah, she's there. She's the Diesel to Mercedes Monet.
Like for the people that aren't aware, this past Wednesday on Dynamite, during the Blood and Guts episode, Mercedes Monet came out after Britt Baker's match with Hikaru Shida. She had a fantastic cowboy hat on because she is the new anxious millennial cowboy. We all know it. It's just a matter of Hangman accepting it, I guess. Uh,
Yeah,
she'll be the replacement of the Elite for Hangman when he leaves. It's
yeah,
perfect.
absolutely.
um,
Well,
but she came out and she had her heater come out to beat up Britt, who was revealed to be Camille.
yeah, and this was perfect. I mean, this is what Mercedes Monet needs to be. I think she understands that she's better as a heel.
Yeah.
I think they were always planning to go in this heel direction anyway. They just needed to wait till, you know, people got used to her and they could start booing her again. And now it's worked out perfectly.
Hmm.
They did a great job. In retrospect, the people they put her in feuds with uh, worked. It was perfect to, slowly move her towards being a heel and people wanting to boo her. So that's perfect. And now we're gonna have this with Camille as the heater, as you said. Is a long time coming. She's been on S tier, I don't know, 6 months maybe. Well, you there? Hello. Test test. Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep talking.
Can you hear
Uh,
me now?
yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Um,
So she's been on S tier for 6 months, I'd say, and during that during that time, we kept saying it's going to happen, and there's been reports that she's been signed, just kind of hanging out there, and I see why they waited now because maybe
yeah.
they had this plan in place this whole time.
Yeah, it seems like this has been the plan for the entire time. And it's been, I think, the only misstep in the entire thing with Mercedes was debuting her back in March and not doing it like a month later than they did. That's been the only misstep. It's been very calculated how they've been doing every single move with her so far. To have her wait to have her first match until a big pay per view and go against a big baby face and pretty much be the main event it should have been the last match. It should have been the main event. Is retrospectively, I
Yeah,
think, how people feel about that. And then have her, get her belt back with the New Japan Strong, and then like yeah, hitting this beat of the Blood and Guts show where everybody's gonna be watching it and paying attention, having her get her new teammate debut there. It's really worked fantastically, and also I'll just say also I like that the the way I'll phrase it is that they're doing a lot with Mercedes that is similar to what they did with Jade Cargill. And what I mean by that is that um she isn't she like in character she's absolutely a heel now, I think. But
Yeah.
there's something aspirational still about her character that people could still cheer for her, and because as a person she is still being presented as like, yeah, this is gonna be one of the faces of the company. She's like a big name person. She's gonna be out there representing the company, having a belt, sitting front court, first row in the on the court, all those kinds of things. And it won't feel weird the way that they've like set up her heel persona. It's not weird for people to see her like out on the street and cheer for her. But then once the bell rings, people are going to cheer for her opponent. And I think that that's a really hard needle to thread, but I think that they've gone and done it.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that. I think that everything they're doing with her is correct. They're going in the right direction with it. I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, and now Camille is a part of it. She was the, I believe, like the longest reigning NWA Women's Champion. She had like a 700-day reign or something like that. I can't remember the exact number right off the top of my head, but it was an extremely long reign as NWA Women's Champion. So she has some craps to her. She's not just like a body to be put next to Mercedes. Um, so I'll be interested to see how she competes in AEW, and especially because I think a lot of people are kind of looking at her being paired with Mercedes and hoping that this means that Jamie Hayter might be coming back soon.
Yes, I think that's what a lot of us want.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Uh, so do transition here from the past resident of S tier to our, I think, gonna be our new resident of S tier. It's Hikuleo. It seems that he has now been officially signed to WWE, and that we're just waiting it out to see when he debuts.
Tala Tonka.
He is the tallest of the Tongans. Yes.
Yes. I think I think that he's probably going. I mean, he'll debut soon, and we could already like. I could already see where this storyline is going.
Yeah.
Like I could. It's already like foretold. You could figure it all out, and maybe we're gonna get the Tongans versus the Samoans as there's once again dissent within the bloodline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As happens seems to be every 4 months or so. So I'm sure that that's where we're going here.
Yeah, it seems that this is heading towards, as we've said before when we've talked about Becky Lynch, the conversation was about which stadium show is Becky Lynch going to show up at in August. And I think the answer for Hikuleo is in a week in Cleveland. I think that he's going to debut at SummerSlam. It seems like it seems too storybook and tight it in like a nice bows on top. Now a lot of people have been thinking about Roman Reigns is going to return at SummerSlam. I don't know if that's going to happen so quickly. But I think Hikuleo showing up at SummerSlam and completing this full transformation of the Bloodline Wolfpack, I think that that's in the cards.
Yes,
And
I agree.
yeah, and then we'll finally get to another former leader of Bullet Club, just like Cody Rhodes. So that'll be fun.
We we need to. I mean, they could just start doing.
They could just have a Bullet Club.
Pretty soon, WWE is going to have more Bullet Club members in it than like New Japan currently has.
I think it's, oh yeah. So they have Finn and AJ and Cody, and then it will be three Gorillas of Destiny as well. So yeah, that's a healthy stable. Oh, and Good Brothers too.
Yes.
So
Yep.
it's 8 members of Bullet Club easy without having to, go into the weird side tangent members that weren't really members and things like that, like Brandy. Which I don't think she's in WWE, but we could get her on screen.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think AEW might have less Bullet Club members even. Well, I think
Maybe.
about
I
that.
don't want to. I don't want to do the. I don't want to do the counting thing. but that's possible. Let's just say it's possible.
Yeah. So I think that what odds do you also let's just get it out of the way. I think that he's an S tier. Do you think that he should be an S tier?
Yeah, he's an S tier.
Now,
Um,
what odds do you give him debuting at SummerSlam?
very highly. I would say within the net. I would say I would. I won't say I would. I would. I'm not gonna say this. I'm not gonna say I would be stunned if he doesn't, because I wouldn't be stunned if he doesn't, because they might hold him off still. Who knows what their plans are? But I think it's more likely than not.
Yeah, I would. I'm gonna put my confidence at like a 75% chance of him appearing at SummerSlam, and hopefully maybe he'll. I'm hopeful for how they use him. Um, well, and Phantasmo is very depressed right now in New Japan, so I hope that they use him very nicely and well and better than like I actually think that, and I agree with one of our committee members on this. I think that the Good Brothers should be used a little bit more, which is funny because like it's the Good Brothers. But like I thought that their match, the NXT Apex show was pretty good. So yeah, we'll see how Hikuleo does on in WWE. And somebody that's not going to be going on to WWE, but people thought that he would be, is Buddy Matthews. He's going to be our next person that we talk about here on WrestleWatch. If you're not subscribed already to WrestleWatch and you're watching right now or listening on your little podcast arena, make sure that you're subscribed to WrestleWatch for the record. We have a Twitter, we have a YouTube, we have a Substack now where we are writing articles as well. So get subscribed to all of our feeds. But yeah, so Buddy Matthews, it appears that he had actually re-signed all the way back in February, which nobody knew about. This was a report from Mike Johnson of PW Insider, and then it was backed up by Meltzer, who said that Matthews was trying to give notice about leaving AEW at a point earlier this year, but Tony Khan didn't want to release anybody that was going to go to WWE, and Tony Khan gave him a lucrative offer, and Buddy re-signed. So, what do you think about Buddy Matthews re-signing with AEW? Do you think that that was a good move for Buddy?
I Here's something I've been saying. I've been saying this for years at this point. This has almost been a catchphrase for me that 90% of these situations will come down to money. And I'd say for about the last 3 or 4 months, I was starting to waver on that a bit because it seemed like we were getting a lot of situations where I was feeling that people were taking offers not necessarily for the money. Like there was a lot of 10%. I feel that I mean, I can't say for sure, but it seemed like that may have been the case. Um, I'm happy to see that this is one of them. I will genuinely say this. I am kind of stunned because I thought that Buddy was going to be one of those 10%,
Well,
not one of the 90%.
yeah, and I'm presuming part of that, of course, is due to somebody else that we like gave a look at this week was Rhea Ripley about chances of her going back on the tier list. I don't think that that's likely. I thought it was more likely that Buddy would go back to WWE because again, like it seemed like that he wasn't super. It seemed like he was not super happy in AEW, and it seems that these reports are saying that yeah, he wasn't very happy. He was trying to leave.
Yeah, which is why I'm surprised that he took the offer. But once again, money talks.
Yeah,
And maybe now that he's, because he has his he hasn't been around lately, but he's also been on a honeymoon
yeah.
and things like that. So maybe now that he's signed a little bit longer term, it's a little more of a commitment. Maybe they'll do a little bit more with him because that's always been the biggest problem with House of Black in general is that it's built around Mal Black and Buddy Matthews and uh, Brody King and Julia, and half of those people are people that we had long felt were just like biding their time to leave. So it's like you're kind of stuck in this spot where it's like you can't really do that much with them because they're gonna leave.
Yeah, and also for that matter, sometimes half of them would be injured at any time.
Yeah, and now only the only one that seems to be out the door is Mal Black.
Possibly. I think that it seems that Tony Khan wants to keep all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that fans, not internet fans, but people in person, it seems that a lot of them are very into House of Black. So I feel that it seems that Tony wants to keep them around. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given a lucrative offer to Buddy. Um, like I don't think that it's an offer of him purely just to spite WWE. I don't think that you try to give a nice money offer to, again, this is one of those people that we've talked about before, that they were people that got released from WWE and didn't really necessarily want to go to AEW. It was kind of the option for them to go to AEW.
I mean, I'll say this: if you were to pick one of them to keep around, I think there's a solid argument to be made that Buddy Matthews is like the best like performer of all of them.
In-ring wrestler, yes, yeah. I mean, like Brody has a different style, so it's somewhat hard to compare.
Yeah, it's arguable, but
Yeah.
you absolutely can make the argument, but Buddy's the best.
Yeah, Buddy's like, if you were to fantasy book like a G1 kind of thing, like a Continental Classic, he's the guy that you would like just be like, oh yeah, that would be fun to watch him wrestle a bunch of matches with top tier talent.
Yeah, and then Mal Black is perpetually sometimes like washed, and sometimes he's okay, and it's like it's hard to tell with him like where he's at anymore.
I,
But
I'm a little bit more rosy about him, honestly, about Malachi. I liked his cage match with Adam Copeland. I know that not a lot of people loved it, but I liked it a lot. So other than the whole machoing of Copeland's leg thing,
yes.
that was like the only negative about that match, I think. But I think that that's because it was a match that was more in the wheelhouse that Malachi wants to work, and it was with somebody that he wanted to work with and all those kinds of things. It was like a very nice bow was being put on, like, here's this beautiful gift for you, Malachi. Please, you're gonna like it. Please work nicely. And honestly, like this whole residency thing for Collision would have been perfect for some of these kinds of guys to go and work. And so it's kind of unfortunate that there doesn't seem like they're on it, but I think that that might still be what they're going to be working on with the Patriarchy's opponent for All In. So we'll see if that's the case. But it seems that obviously that Buddy Matthews is going to be sticking around, and he might be a part of those plans.
All right. So are we? I think we're on to the next one.
Yeah, and I think that pretty much in agreement. He gone from the tier list, and somebody that used to be he gone from the tier list was El Hijo del Vikingo. He was removed from the tier list earlier this year because he re-signed with AAA. Folks were thinking that he was going to go to AEW full time. There was some talk this week, some trying to read tea leaves about him posting a picture of himself like from one of his stints at AEW. I think that he's also injured right now, for that matter, right?
Yeah, he's injured.
So it seemed like it was reminiscing about his time with AEW, and this is something that like luchadors will just post things, and it won't necessarily mean like we're trying to leave where we're currently working. Lucha politics are weird. But yeah, so I'm not so sure about him doing anything or going anywhere, so I didn't want to include him on the tier list. Is that kind of how you're feeling?
Yeah, same. I see no reason. I don't see anything that came up that would indicate that he should be on the tier list. He re-signed with AAA. He's been injured. Nothing new has happened other than there's reports that he's almost back from injury, like he'll be back soon.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're not the only people Where it's not that our votes are more powerful than everybody else's. So he will be going back on the tier list to see if the tea leaves are moving in that direction. We'll probably be talking about him again soon enough once he gets back from injury.
Well, and that's fine because here's the thing: if they want to make the argument that we don't know how long his contract is we don't know when he's gonna when he'll be due. We don't know what the situation, how he feels about AEW and AAA kind of being on the outs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
maybe he has different opinions on that. So if he's on F tier, I'm fine with him being on F tier.
Yeah, and something that's I think an interesting development in all of that this weekend was Death Triangle appearing at Arena Mexico. They had a trios match with was it Mystico, Mascara Dorada, and
Yeah.
Volador Jr.
Excuse me.
Seriously, yeah, I'm sorry.
It was Pac, King, and Lucha Brother.
Yes, the Lucha Brother was very over. Also,
Yes.
um, he was getting cheered more than Mystico and was getting Mystico booed in ring.
Yes. That
um, which is
which I love so much that that's the best they can come up with. What's your name? Lucha Brother. Okay.
Lucha Brother. It was funny on commentary too because they were. I kept on hearing them being like Rey, and then they had to say, like they would sit for a second on that and say King. Like they knew that they messed up, but they just kept on calling him Ray. They wouldn't say Phoenix, but also interestingly enough, AEW posted a little blog post about the match, and they did not mention the name Penta or Ray Phoenix at all in their blog post in the AEW blog post. So it seems that there was some lucha politics involved with them not using their God given names because it's possible that the copyrights might belong to somebody else in Mexico. um, so, but the interesting thing about that, and also with over at Ring of Honor, there was a match between Commander, who is a current AAA champion, versus the Beast Mortis, who left AAA to sign with ROH and AEW, and he's appeared since then on some house shows for CMLL when he was having some issues getting back into America and everything. So there seems to be some playing ball, at least on the CMLL side now, officially on we will work with people that left AAA, are not in bad standing with CMLL kind of vibe. Like Rouge is still seeming to be a little bit on the outs, but it's possible that if Vikingo were to leave AAA, that his ability to work in Arena Mexico might be pretty quick if he were to do that. If we take this to fruition, this whole tea leaf reading about Vikingo, I think that that's a possibility in the future if he goes that route.
That's very possible, and it's something that I will keep an eye on. But I
Yeah,
don't think we have any indication that that's happening anytime soon.
yeah,
So we will, but we'll see.
yeah. But it was crazy to see that allegedly the Lucha Brother was having issues leaving the arena because people were crowding his van when he was trying to leave, because which is like very abnormal for after show at Arena Mexico. So yeah, they're over, brother, Lucha Brother.
Yeah, and King.
Next up that we're going to talk about, I think this is the last talent that we have for today's episode, is Joe Hendry. He's somebody that I've been banging the drum on about wanting to put him on the tier list for a few weeks now. And this weekend, in fact, he appeared on an NXT house show, which is peculiar to say the least. So I have a lot of tea leaf reading about this, but it doesn't feel like tea leaves. It feels like it's very obvious to me that WWE is interested in Joe Hendry. And I think before we got on recording here, I think Doug, you had an analogy of another wrestler that he kind of reminds you of in WWE.
Oh yeah, I might have actually said it last week on here where I said tongue in cheek. So don't get mad at me for saying that like this, but I said LA Knight versus Joe Hendry is the dream match for people who hate wrestling.
Yeah, and it's because his aura and this is not a knock at Joe Hendry whatsoever, but he has such an aura and ability to have memed himself up the card.
Yes.
And he's not a bad wrestler at all. It's just that like his ability to go up the card is because of his work creating his persona and creating interest and buzz around him throughout the internet. In a way that now it's gotten, I think, WWE very interested in having him stay around. Um, how do you feel about that?
I think that he is not long for uh, TNA. I
Yeah,
think it's pretty. I mean, look, they're not going to have him on like NXT house shows, and unless they, they're gonna unless they see something in him, and they clearly do. Obviously, the guy is very creative, very charismatic,
yeah,
and He's got a gimmick that works very well, and I think that it would be silly for WWE not to try to capitalize on him.
yeah.
And I even if his wrestling is not incredible, like his in ring, but in a sense, like, isn't that like why he's probably perfect for WWE? Because LA Knight is notoriously not a good wrestler, and he's he went extremely far. Like, he's still like a very, very popular act. I mean,
And
it's a similar thing.
yeah, yeah, and it's I think that they understand what they have there in NXT with him. And again, this is kind of another one of those notes of like NXT kind of going through that Schrodinger's developmental routine where they've hit gold, it seems, with somebody that they might have not been expecting, and he's not like a performance center kind of guy, but they're gonna go for it, which I think is a positive development for NXT as a brand, as a quasi promotion unto itself. That they're going to strike while the iron is hot on somebody, with somebody like Joe Hendry. I was gonna say something, then I lost it in the middle of my. But yeah, I think that it's interesting to see the development of NXT into something new. It's we're beyond the 2.0 era, I think now. I think that they've coalesced on a new idea of what NXT is, and that they're going with it. Which not everybody might like it. Some people really love it. And Joe Hendry is pulling big numbers on YouTube with watches, which makes me believe that a lot of TNA people are not watching NXT live, but they're watching the videos afterwards to see all of the TNA talent go to NXT. Um, so yeah, we'll see.
You're saying you believe in Joe Hendry.
I believe in Joe Hendry, and I think that he should go on the tier list. I think that we should put him in F tier.
I agree.
Well, we didn't get enough.
Actually, I didn't. I don't think I. Actually, what did I say? Let me
Did you
double
say?
check let me double check my list here before I say exactly what I said. Because okay, no, I said that he should be in A tier.
You said A tier. Wow, that's a hot grab.
Yeah,
There.
I was like, well, because once again, I think that it's only a matter of time, and I think that there was talk that his contract is up. I don't know if it's like imminent, but I think it's soon.
I think that I think that it's up in the air about, because when
Yeah.
Sean Ross Sapp was asked about it, he gave a kind of vague a while, which like for TNA contracts, I think they're only like 2-year contracts
Yeah,
usually.
I mean, it's
So
not a TNA contract is not that long. Like,
yeah,
they're not signing 5-year deals for their talent. So, I mean, a while in
TNA
TNA language is like maybe what, maybe less. It could be less than a year.
it could be.
And
Yeah,
I think that he's going. Like, I mean, everything I've said so far about him, I think it's pretty clear that I think he's going.
yeah. Unfortunately, again, we are not the two people. We're not a 2-man power trip, unfortunately, even though we're the host of the show. So our committee has made the decision of keeping him off for the moment.
Honestly,
But
I'm okay with that because I think we'll have plenty of time to revisit this.
yeah, we'll have quote a while to think about
Yes.
this. But yeah, so that wraps up our Joe Hendry portion, and that leads into our final portion of this episode, is going to be talking about AEW media rights. We have this on the tier list currently at a D tier, uh, which means that we're not super confident that it's. Oh, and also in chat right now, somebody is saying that it was Joe Hendry himself that said, "quote a while," in a Talk Is Jericho interview. So it is quote unquote a while, but again, as we've just stated, TNA a while might be a little bit shorter than other people's a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so AEW media rights. The update this week is that this is allegedly the hour of the exclusive window opening up, the forbidden door, if you will, or their transfer portal out of WBD. There were a few reports of people saying that a deal has been agreed to, but pen is not to paper. Which I will give my opinion in a little bit on how I feel about that. But there was also a question at the recent the pre-show scrum, media call. That's the word for the media call before Death Before Dishonor, where Tony Khan was asked about the current negotiations with Warner Brothers, and he essentially alluded to a thing that we've been calling a legacy activity. Do you have more on that, Doug?
Well, yeah. So here's what happened. So you know, Chris Legentil, the notorious WWE PR czar, apparently, according to Tony Khan at least, said that they've been putting out stuff to wrestling media that AEW are going to re-sign for the exact same amount that they already got with WBD and not getting an increase. And Tony Khan has said that this is just you know that's fake. It's not true. It's just more of the planted stories. So I say I do not think that AEW is re-signing for the same amount of money. I think it's going to be much higher. I said it's going to be closer to like 175 a
Yeah.
year. I think it's going to be up to there, that kind of amount compared to the what is it, 45? That's probably closer to 70 now because
Well,
they added collision and stuff, right?
yeah. So the original deal was for 45 for Dynamite. Once they added everything else, there's been like little bits and pieces that people have been able to find over the years about how much they're getting paid. The estimate is currently between 70 and 90 million a year.
Yeah. So I would imagine it's going to be at least double that.
Yeah, I would think that what the 150 to 175 range is the most likely.
Yeah. And based off of and here's the thing. I think that I agree. I do think it is pretty much done in principle, and I think that ultimately they just can't or just don't want to do anything yet until they kind of wrap up this NBA fiasco.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's I don't know how long that's going to take. I don't know if eventually because I don't know if we're eventually going to get a situation because they're good. I think that WBD is going to like push this and try to take this to court, or at least threaten it
They've
to the
already,
point that
yeah, they already have filed a lawsuit. Yeah.
yeah. So essentially, we're looking at a situation where it's probably not going to actually go to court. I think it's probably going to get settled, and eventually, it's going to end up with either one of two solutions. I think either we're going to see a situation where um, their NBA is going to cave and they're going to like carve up and make a fourth package for them so that WBD still gets some NBA on their programming, which I think is probably the most likely outcome on this is that they just like throw them a bone just so they don't have to deal with this. The other option I think is maybe NBA pays them off and just gives them like gives them $1 billion here, go away.
Hmm.
And then that I think that's possible too. But I really think that WBD wants NBA bad,
Yeah.
and I think they're gonna push for that and almost feel like they need NBA. And in a lot of ways, maybe they do. So I think that we could see that happening. And once again, I don't know how long that process is going to take. And but I
Yeah.
think that that's what's holding up AEW's TV rights deal. But I do
Yeah.
agree that I think they have a deal in principle. They just can't. They just don't want to sign it until they get this NBA thing cleared up.
Yeah, so with the NBA things, just for the people that might not be following along, uh Warner Brothers was in an exclusive window for negotiating their NBA rights with ESPN also, because they were the current rights holders for NBA for nationally televised games. During their exclusive window, they allowed Amazon to be brought in and negotiate also for a C package, a third package, which was created then for Amazon. Um, During the negotiating window, they were not able to get an agreement with Warner Brothers. So when the window opened, the NBA then went to NBC or to Comcast, and Comcast made a bigger offer for the package that was being created for Warner Brothers. Um, Part of their contract said that they could match a deal, so they tried to match the Amazon deal, which interestingly enough, part of the Amazon deal is actually worldwide streaming rights to their package. So it's not just US based streaming rights for the games that they're going to be showing. Warner Brothers, in their matching of it, actually shrunk it to being just US streaming rights for that package, which meant that the package, and they matched the money, which included money in advance, which meant that Warner Brothers' deal financially is a better deal than Amazon's deal. And the NBA then said that the deal was not better, so they're going to pick Amazon. That is leading now to Warner Brothers to sue the NBA. Um, with all that, as you said, it's probably that it's going to get settled out of court prior to going to court, because part of the issue, one of the cruxes that some of the people are saying is that um, Amazon has a larger streaming reach, allegedly. They have a theoretically bigger audience, but not in practice, just because of how Prime is structured. Um, so that's the argument, allegedly, that the NBA is going with about the value of the two packages. So it's unlikely that it'll go to court, because then part of the discovery will be having to reveal those numbers and all these internal numbers that their competitors might not want to know about. So it's likely that Amazon might push the NBA to get an out of court settlement for all this.
Yeah, and could we just I would like to just kind of point out this idea that like Amazon Prime has like this giant reach that Max doesn't is kind of really misleading, because let's be honest here. Um, they go by Amazon Prime Video. The numbers are based off of people who have Prime, because if you have Prime, you have Prime Video.
Right.
Like how many people, that have Amazon Prime for, shipping and things like that have never used Prime Video?
Probably a
Probably
lot.
probably most, like I say, a vast majority of them, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think that that's also just a very silly and misleading number. Like, yes, people have Prime Video, but a lot of people don't even set it up or you've never used it.
Yeah, and when you look at the I think that they've said that they have like 200 million subscribers or something like that, and Max has like, I can't remember the numbers now. It might be 100 or something, but yeah. So that's the argument that they're going to be going with likely, and that's why I also think that it's unlikely for this to actually get to a court date.
Yeah.
But yeah, as this week is also the settlement for the Diamond Sports Group, which is possibly going to allow for the rights to a bunch of different teams to revert to the teams, in which case the NBA could create a new package. And so it might be in a week that we don't even have the story at all if the NBA is just like, okay, fine, here's the settlement. You guys can help us create like nationally made regional sports networks for these different teams that we can then, have subscriptions for. That's something that's been talked about with the Major League Baseball, with what they want to do if they get the rights back from Diamond Sports Group. So I think it's possible that this might not even be a thing in a week. We'll find out. I think that that's like the domino sequence, though, is the Diamond Sports Group stuff, and then that might lead to a court settlement. And then we might have news about. But I think that with AEW that we'll hear by All In probably if they have signed a deal, regardless of if the NBA rights is settled. Because I think that they would want that big of a platform if they already have a deal with Warner Brothers to announce it or to put it onto Max, which it appears that as part of the launch of Max in France for the Olympics, because Warner Brothers has the rights to the Olympics in France through Eurosport, they have added AEW to Max in France. So that is like a little bit of a possible clarion, little canary for us of maybe this is moving in a direction. But we'll see. My feeling on the entire matter is I'm kind of putting this in a C tier personally still, because I think that it is the fact that they're now outside the exclusive window and they have not announced a contract and they have not signed a contract makes me feel like there's now 50-50 odds of them leaving. But how are you feeling about the odds of AEW leaving Warner Brothers?
I don't think they're leaving at all. I don't think that's going to happen. At this point, they already. I think there's just been too many tea leaves to be read that show that they pretty much have the deal. The deal is done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just waiting. So I think that I actually went for a remove because I think if the deal is done, I don't think they're going to just suddenly pull the rug out underneath them at this point. I think it's a done deal.
Well, how about we split the difference and how about we put them in F tier, which is how the committee went. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
Okay, well then that's settled. I'm glad that we agree. So here is the new updated tier list for everybody that is watching right now on YouTube. You're seeing it on your screen. For the people listening at home, we're going to now read through the tier list. If you want to take S tier, we could hop between the tiers.
I think that'll work. So S tier, we only have one person in it anymore, and that's Hikuleo.
In A tier, we have Ricochet and the Motor City Machine Guns. There hasn't been a lot of news about either of them recently, but it seems that at least Ricochet is probably going to AEW. Motor City Machine Guns, it looks like a jump ball, but they're going to probably sign with a major promotion pretty soon.
All right, and then for B tier, we have grizzled young veterans Ricky Starks, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Alex Windsor, Leo Rush, Dijak, Zilla Fatu, and Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, Leo Rush is a little bit interesting because he's been appearing as part of the Texas residency in AEW. So I might be interested in moving him up next week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
I
can see that.
Yeah, C tier, we have Trevor Lee, as some of you might know him as Cameron Grimes. We have Speedball Mike Bailey, Mustafa Ali, the Von Erichs, Danhausen, the WWE TNA relationship, Megan Bain, Jake Lee, and now MVP. Von Erichs, they just won the Ring of Honor 6-man belts.
Yeah, they're going to be ones we may want to talk about next week too.
Yeah. I think it's for the residency, but I think that it's like you don't put belts on somebody just for a residency. I don't think.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, and then for D tier, we have Jinder Mahal, or what does he go by now?
The Maharaja, I think, is what he goes by now.
I think he actually has. Yeah, he has like a. We should probably figure out what his name is. Jinder Mahal, Tekla, Kevin Owens, Becky Lynch, Katsuhiko Nakajima, Viva Van, Sheamus, Jordan Grace, and Shelton Benjamin are all D tier.
Yeah, and I think we'll find out next week if Becky Lynch appears at one of the stadium shows in August. And then in F tier, we have Sari, Utami Hayashishida, Hook, El Phantasmo, Keito Kiyomiya, Michael Oku, Jake Hager, The Street Profits, El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., Daniel Garcia, Dustin Rhodes, AEW's media rights, and El Hijo del Vikingo.
All right.
So
that sounds like a list.
Yeah, and I think next week, as we've mentioned, we might be talking about a few of these folks, like Leo Rush, the Von Erichs. We might do a little pre-talk about Becky Lynch, depending on if we get any news going into SummerSlam, and also I think we're starting to get to the point of wanting to maybe do a recalibration on the promotions and maybe start to consider Marigold on our promotions list.
Yeah, we probably should start having that discussion.
Yeah, because that match, I don't know if you watched the Marigold show, but that match that Utami had with Io Sky was, ooh,
It was
chef's
fantastic.
kiss. That
Yes,
was
it was a
really
great
good.
match. I thought the main event was really good too.
I thought the main event was better personally,
Yeah.
because I kind of didn't like how Utami was just being. It just felt like she didn't get enough offense in. But it really did kind of point in the direction of like, yeah, maybe Io will be having a return match with Utami down the road. Maybe Utami will be going to WWE for the return match.
I mean, it was Io's best match in years, I would say.
Oh, that was, yeah. She balled out and made everybody know that she is who she, like, people say that she is. And like,
Yeah.
I wish and hope that when Julia finally shows up in WWE and Stephanie Vacour shows up, that they all have matches together, because that's a core of like, this is how WWE can get the Graps audience to watch them.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
yeah. So anyway, was there anything else that you wanted to cover this week, Doug?
I think we hit on everything.
All right. Well, thank you everybody that has been listening to WrestleWatch this week. We will be back next week, so make sure to be subscribed to our YouTube, our Twitter, and our Substack to get the updates during the week and to be notified when we are going live with our episode next week.
All right. Until then, I'm Doug.
And I'm Ryan. Have